Hi. In the previous tutorial, we have seen how to create a database table. In this tutorial, we will see how to create one of the other catalog object, which is sequence. So sequences are basically nothing but a number range object, which is going to define that what is the next number that has to be assigned to the key field. So usually when we wanted to generate the IDs and when we wanted to give it, we will be using the number range object. So to create that number range object in HANA, we have something called as a sequence, which does the job of creating the next number that has to be uniquely defined for the next row in the table. So to create this, once again we will use this file based architecture, and for creating the sequence we will create a file with an extension .hdb sequence. So this is going to be the file extension, and in this file extension we are going to specify certain attributes which will tell like how the number range object should be generated. Then after creating the number range object, we will also see how to use those number range object. So in the same development project exercise 3, where we have developed our schema and table, I'm going to create a new file which I'm going to call it as a, say for example, I'm going to call it as a column id dot hdb sequence. Now the name of the sequence that we are generating is column id. So I have given the extension as hdb sequence and I click on finish. So now this is going to open me we have created a HTTP sequence file. So inside this file, we are going to set certain keywords, like what the value of this particular keyword should be, and based upon the sequence will react. So we have one keyword called as a schema, where we defined what is the schema in which I am creating this database sequence. So I'm going to create this sequence in this schema, which ends with exercise. So I will provide the schema name. Then there is an attribute or a keyword called start with, which is going to tell the system like from which number range it should start from. So if I'm not going to specify this property, it is going to start from 1. So just for demonstration purposes, I'm going to have my number range starting 1 and all zeros. So remember, when we created our database table, we have given the first column as a varchar and the length we have given as 10. So I'm going to give a 10 digit value over here for the start with value, which is 1 0 0 0 0 1 2 3 4 5. So I have given a 10 digit value over here, and this is the number range that should start from. So when I insert the first record into the DB, that number column, the first column will have this value, this. Then the next column will have the value 101. Then it will be having 2, and it will go on and on. Then when we create the schema, we can also actually tell the system that for which particular table I am going to create the schema, or for which particular view I am going to create the schema. So one thing that while we are going with this file based architecture is, instead of directly going and writing the SQL statement over there, if I'm going to go ahead with the file based architecture, then we could also get a little various list. Now say for example, if I'm going to delete the table or if I'm going to drop the table from the DB, then in that case it is going to pop up and say that there is a sequence which is associated with this table and you wanted to remove those objects as well. So these options you will not be getting like when you are going to directly execute the SQL command. So you also get the dependencies like for which table which sequence is associated, and if I'm going to modify the table, should this sequence also should be modified, and so on. So there is another keyword called as a depends on table. So depends on table, for which I'm going to give the name of the table. So to take the name of the table, you can go to the schema and you can say that you can see the table name over here, which is the name of the table, which is exercise 3 dot demo underscore table. So to retrieve the name of the table, I'm just going to open this table and I'm going to take the table name from here and I'm going to give the reference of the table name over here. So now I have created a number range object for this particular table, and its value will start from this. So I am going to save and activate this file. So once I save and activate this file, I could see that the schema has been created into my sequence has been created into my schema folder. So the file is activated, and if I go to the systems catalog and if I refresh my schema, I should be now able to see the sequence. So if I'm expanding the sequence, then you can see that the sequence has been now created, which has this property, right? So how the value should be incremented by? So we have some other properties such as like increment by, like whether I should increment one after another and so on. So what is the maximum capacity till the value can reach? And there is one more property called as a cycles, which you can set it to false if you do not want to reuse the entry again and again, right? So now we will also see how to use this sequence. Now here what I'm going to do is, for this particular example, I'm just going to insert the record into the database using the SQL statement directly. So we have already created a table and we also have a number range object now. Now I'm going to go here and I'm going to insert a record into this table. So for that, what you can do is, if you wanted to generate a SQL statement for either select or insert, you can ask the system to do that by right clicking on the table, generate insert statement. Now this is going to give you the insert command with 4 value columns. So you can see that one, which is a text, will be given in the quotes and number range will be given as an empty. So here it basically we have created our table with 4 columns and we are going to give this first column in the form of a string, second column number which is integer, third column is a numeric characters, and the fourth column is a decimal. Is that what we have created in the previous example? So now for this first column, I do not wanted to give the value on my own. Instead, I wanted this value to come from the number range object. So for that, I'm going to use this number range sequence. So you can just go here, select the sequence, and you can drop it over here into this particular thing. So now in this sequence, I wanted the next value. So I'm going to give like next val. So along with the sequence, I kept a dot and I placed a next val property. Then other things I'm going to insert, like I'm going to give some integer, I'm going to give some values, and I'm going to give some decimal values. And I'm going to execute this application. Now you can see that we have obtained an error message saying that insufficient privilege not authorized. That is because last time when we grant permission to the schema, we have only granted permission for the select statement. So now we are only allowed to read the data from the database and not to modify the data or to update the values back. So for that purpose, what we are going to do is, we are going to go ahead and assign the authorization. Now, for me to assign the authorization, I can either go ahead and call the procedure like we did earlier, and we can assign the authorization, or we can also go and assign the authorization to the user directly if we have admin permission for that. So you can go to this security section. If you expand the security section, you will find something called users and roles. So in the roles, you will be finding what are the roles that you have created, roles and privileges, and in the user, you will be able to find the list of database users available. Now, right click on the user and say find user and find your user name. So you can find your username and you can click on OK, and now this is going to open the user information for the user. So here you will be able to find the list of roles and privileges that have been assigned for this particular user. Okay, so what are the granted roles and who has granted that particular role? So these are some of the roles which I have created on my own, and I have assigned this role to me by using this sys underscore repo user, and the public user is by default available to any user, and shared user role has been assigned by admin to me. Now here you can see some of the system privileges, what are the object privileges you have. So when you go to this object privilege session, you will be able to see the list of schema for which you are authorized to. So here I have already authorized myself for this C5195-137 underscore exercise schema, wherein you can see that I have only granted the permission for the select. So whatever is the other authorization that you wanted to execute to, you can just select those checkboxes, whatever the authorization I wanted to grant for myself, and click on save. So now earlier we had only the select permission. Now I have given privilege for all the kind of operations that I can do with this schema, and I have clicked on save. So this has saved and my user will be updated with these roles. Now if I go to the SQL statement and if I execute this command, now you can see that the data record has been inserted into my database successfully. So you can just go and open the database table, right click on the table and see open data preview, and you can see the record which we have inserted into the table, and you can see that column 1 has given the number range value from this. Now if I go ahead and execute this one with some different values, say for example 12, and here I give some values, and here I give some value, and I click on insert. Now my record will be inserted once again, and if I refresh this table, so if I refresh this table, then I can see that the sequence number range has been incremented by 1. So here we also have a refresh option using which we can refresh the table content. Okay, thanks. In the next tutorial, we will see some of the other catalog objects which we can develop. Thank you.